Imagine waking up one morning to find that everything your family survives on, everything you eat, every meal you know, has turned black and rotten overnight. Not just your farm, every farm in the country. That is exactly what happened to the people of Ireland in 1845. And by the time it was over, more than 1 million were dead, and another 2 million had fled. What unfolded over the next 7 years was one of the worst humanitarian disasters in European history. In this video, we employ advanced AI techniques to transform original Victorian engravings and faded historical photographs into vivid, lifelike scenes, allowing you to experience this world not just as a history lesson, but as it truly looked and felt. Stay with us, because this story is worth seeing. By the early 1840s, Ireland has a population of over 8 million people. Most of them are tenant farmers, renting small plots of land from largely Anglo-Irish landlords. Life is hard and margins are thin, but it functions. And the reason it functions is the potato. The potato had become the foundation of life for Ireland's rural poor. It's hardy, nutritious, calorie-dense, and grows well even in poor soil. By the early 1840s, almost half the Irish population relied almost exclusively on the potato for their diet. A typical labouring family was eating around 8 pounds of potatoes per person per day. For them, there was little else. But this dependency sits on top of a deeply unequal system. From the Act of Union in 1801, Ireland is officially part of the British Empire. Most of the land is owned by Protestant Anglo-Irish landlords. Catholic tenants cannot vote, cannot hold office, and have almost no legal protection. They grow food, and much of it leaves Ireland entirely, bound for English markets. In the autumn of 1845, something is wrong in the fields. Strange lesions appear on the leaves, and potatoes turn dark and foul-smelling. The culprit is a water mold called Phytophthora infestans, accidentally carried over from North America. Ireland had unusually cool, moist weather that year. Perfect conditions for the blight to thrive. Much of that year's crop rots in the fields. That first year destroys about half the crop. Bad, but survivable. Then 1846 arrives, and 1847, and 1848. Each successive year, the potato crop is almost completely ruined by the blight. The partial failure becomes a catastrophe. People who had little begin to have nothing. The winters of 1846 and 1847 are the harshest on record. Families evicted from their cottages build rough shelters from turf and branches called scalpines. Cold, wet, and starving, they die of starvation, or from the diseases that follow hunger. Typhus, dysentery, scurvy, tuberculosis. There are accounts of people dying with green mouths from eating grass. Ireland has 130 poor law unions, each with a workhouse. Under the 1838 Poor Law, only workhouse inmates qualify for state aid. Desperate families surrender their land, the only thing they own, just to get inside. Once in, husbands are separated from wives, children from parents. 1/3 of all famine deaths happen inside these crowded, disease-ridden workhouses. In London, the response is shaped by a man named Charles Trevelyan, the civil servant in charge of famine relief. He dismisses the scale of what is happening and insists market forces will correct the situation. He publicly declares that the real problem is not the physical evil of the famine, but what he calls the moral character of the Irish people. While people starve, food continues to leave Ireland. Grain, livestock, dairy, all of it exported under military guard to meet commercial contracts with England. Throughout the famine years, Ireland is required to export food, including livestock, dairy, peas, beans, and rabbits, to England. The sight of food ships leaving a starving country will never be forgotten. Relief efforts do exist, but they are inadequate and sometimes absurd. The government puts starving people to work building roads that lead nowhere, where starving workers are paid 8 to 10 pence for a 12-hour day of crushing stones and cutting rock. Hard labour for people who have barely eaten in weeks. Many collapsed and died on the way home. With nothing left and no prospect of survival, people begin to move. Most dream of America or Canada, but the fare is beyond reach. The closest escape is just across the Irish Sea, Liverpool. From 1846, Irish people began arriving in Liverpool in enormous numbers. At the height of the crisis, In the terrible year of 1847, known as Black 47, an estimated 300,000 Irish passed through the port in a single year. Liverpool, already overcrowded and industrially stretched, is overwhelmed. The arrivals flood into the cheapest housing near the docks. Liverpool's notorious cellar dwellings, where entire families live below street level with no light, no ventilation, and no sanitation. Typhus, which has already decimated Ireland, now spreads through Liverpool's poorest streets. The city's death rate spikes sharply. Sectarian confrontations are frequent, as some residents resent the sudden arrival of Catholic immigrants. Yet Liverpool also absorbs them. Irish communities take root. People find work. On the docks, in construction, in factories. They send money home. They pay the fare for the next brother, the next cousin. Slowly, street by street, Liverpool becomes one of the most Irish cities outside Ireland itself. For those who can scrape together a fare, the destination is America or Canada. But the cheapest passage means a coffin ship, a cargo vessel repurposed for human transport with no real provisions, no medical care, and no space. Around 30% of passengers on these ships die on the crossing from starvation and disease. Every day, sailors throw bodies overboard. Those who survive arrive sick and hollow-eyed at quarantine stations. At Gros Isle in Quebec alone, an estimated 5,000 Irish are buried. The survivors, once released, scatter across North America, finding work, building communities, and carrying with them a grief that doesn't fade. When the Blight finally loosened its grip in 1852, Ireland's population had fallen from almost 8.4 million in 1844 to 6.6 million by 1851. Roughly 1 million people have died, 2 million more have emigrated. And emigration doesn't stop there. It continues for decades. By the 1920s, Ireland's population was barely half of what it was before the famine. The Great Famine is not a story that has a clean ending. It reshaped Ireland, transformed Liverpool, and sent Irish blood to every corner of the world. Today, an estimated 100 million people worldwide have Irish ancestry. Most of them descended in some way from those who survived these years. If this video taught you something you didn't know, please like and subscribe. Every view helps us bring more of these hidden human stories to life. We have a lot more history left to uncover together.